Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Monday, March 21st, 2016 City Council meeting. At this time, I will call the meeting to order, and we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, Shelley, if you can take that blanket off, you can probably do roll call over there.
No wonder I'm sick. Albertson? 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 Bueller? Bueller? Danforth?
Here.
Manty? Riefenberger is absent. Roby?
Here.
Solem?
Here.
Thorson?
Here.
Tupper?
Here.
Vilhauer?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, and I would like to add to the consent agenda the authorization to advertise for bids for the Foundation Field Baseball Lighting Project. And with that, that would go on letter E. At this time, I'll look for a motion and a second for, motion
Second.
by John, second by Randy. Any questions?
That was to solicit bids?
Yes.
Yep, okay.
Yep. I will look for council action. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 2, approval of the agenda. I do want to add to 2.5, I'm going to put a Craig Atkins on there, and Craig will actually be talking about an offer of purchase of some land from Watertown, and we'll look at that. So at this time, I'll look for a motion and a second. Motion
Second.
by Beth, second by Bruce. Any questions, concerns? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, Craig, if you want, you can certainly come up. He just got this in his hands seconds ago. This is an offer to purchase some land from the city of Watertown that was brought to me earlier, I think it was Friday afternoon late that came in. So if you want to just give us a little heads up on it, Craig.
All right, Craig Atkins with Watertown Development Company. We have a lot. I don't know that we still have it up here. Is that on here still? I don't know what I'm looking at. We have a lot in the Endries Industrial Park that it's the last lot. There's 2 lots left, and there's one lot that's remaining, and it's right next to ABS Auto Body Solutions, or just to the west of Integrity Tool and Die. It's a 3.5 acre lot. So with any of these Endries Industrial Park properties or any other properties that the city sells for an industrial or commercial purpose, we typically get involved because they run that offer through our office and we bring it to you. In this particular case, the mayor's office received this offer on Friday. And so as the mayor said, I'm just looking at it, but it's that area outlined in blue that we're talking about, 3.5 acres. The offer came in for $100,000 all in. The person offering the property had indicated that that the lot was a little bigger than what he proposed, and they're proposing contractor shops. So it'd be similar to many of those buildings we see now where there's multiple tenants in one building. We have been selling those lands in that park for $17,500 an acre, plus a 50-cent per square foot assessment. And so the purchase price based off of that math would be $137,633 approximately. And that's rough because we'd have to get the exact square footage and whatever, but it's approximately a 3.5 acre lot. And so we told the buyer, both the mayor and I in our conversations with him at different times, that we would bring that forward, present it, get your feeling as it relates to that. But at this point, I guess if you asked me what my recommendation would be is, because we've sold those other lots for a similar amount, just because it doesn't work for him, doesn't mean it might not work for somebody else in terms of the lot dimensions. And that we would either allow them to counter at a price closer to what we want, or we could talk about maybe another lot either in that park. We do have another lot in that park. It's lot 34. And it's north of the detention pond that's out there. The problem with that lot is there's no road, water, or sewer. And so from a cost standpoint, I don't know if we're really splitting hairs here or not, but we did suggest that as maybe a more appropriate place for what he's proposing. But again, without a road there, somebody's gonna have to take care of that cost.
Craig, you said 137, 633 on past sale or sales. Is that just the last sale, or that's what most of them been?
So the 5,000 an acre has been past sales, not all of them, but within the last 4 years, that's the number we've used.
We've been very consistent with
Yep,
that, haven't we?
Yep. And incrementally, just so you know, historically here, incrementally, those lot prices have gone up. They started at about 10,000 an acre, but that was before there was any infrastructure. And then we ramped that up to the current number, and that was based off of the lot's value increasing because of the improvements that we made. So, and the other thing is, don't think about this as your traditional infrastructure improvement that you might have on private property, because there were some other funds involved in this. The city's actual cost for this infrastructure was much higher than 50 cents a square foot, but that was a number we agreed to several years ago because we felt it was fair, and we also felt that it wouldn't create undue competition with private developers. In other words, we wouldn't be undercutting the cost of the lots.
Well, Craig, one question, or thought, I should say, as I look at this, in our work session, we talked about the need for the city buying additional land for this type of development and additional, and when we are so short on that, I am not sure why we would cut the sale price of this, tacking that idea of that notion onto the fact that we've been consistent with the other price.
Right, I agree.
My opinion is we should hang in there with that.
And the man made a offer to the city of Watertown, and we had to bring it forward to see if you would entertain that, and that's why Craig stuck around for us.
So Craig, we haven't been actively trying to sell that just somebody came up with knowing it was the city's and he wanted to.
No, we actively have been trying to sell it.
Oh.
We have it listed on our website. We don't, we're not running it through a realtor, for instance, or we don't have it listed, the city or the development company. We don't list very often. Some of our properties, but not very often. And when we get inquiries about available properties, one of the first things we want to understand is what type of business and how much land do you need. And then once we know that, we kind of direct them towards the options. And we always encourage them to look at private development first, because we're not trying to compete with the private developer. That's why when we did this park, there was really a need for it. We didn't have those less than 5 acre lots for these types of operations to locate in. And I think it's turned out very well. And as we expand this concept, I don't know that we'd want to deviate from that, concept. Whereas, the reality is on our larger projects, subsidize is not the right word, but we do offer incentives as it relates to land value to help us secure financing. Doesn't mean we don't recoup that. It's just a lot longer out than what a private developer would be willing to do.
So the last three that probably were out there, just correct me if I'm wrong, is probably ABS, McKeever's, and Performance,
Yeah, yep.
and they all paid
Yep.
They all
Yep,
paid
all
that.
3 of those paid the 17.5.
So it'd be kind of tough for me to go back and look at those guys and say, well, you guys paid this, now we're giving it to somebody else cheaper. So
How long ago were those sales, Craig?
Well, so let's see, probably 2013, 2014. Yeah, I don't think there was anything out there last summer.
Okay. So
I think
would
we're all
we,
moving in the same
Would we
direction.
need a motion, a second, to either accept or decline this?
I make a motion that we decline the offer.
You do need it, am I correct? One of you?
If you formally want it in the minutes as some official action taken,
I
you
think we
can do that.
I think we do. Okay, so then I have a motion by Beth and a
Second.
second by Mike to decline the offer. Any other discussion on that? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Craig, while you're still here, and can, Shane, before you dump that off, could you take that down to that other little piece of property so you guys are aware of it on 14th Street and 12th Avenue Southeast? This is another location that he was looking at. This is going right next by our ball diamonds. And
Right.
I just to kind of head this off, are you interested at all in selling any of this property or not? Can you show them where that's at? Right on the corner. It's down, right to your left. We own that corner also, the city does. And I don't know if you're at all interested in selling that. Because the guy, I know the gentleman wants to take a look at that and make an offer on that. If
He
we
has
don't,
a-
if we're not interested at all, I mean, we should just say it up front.
He has another building in that general area. I can't tell you exactly where it is.
That's by all those other contractor shops,
Yeah.
right?
But, yeah.
Yep.
Mayor, do we own the land you said on that corner, but is it all the way over to that,
That's correct.
right there?
Yep.
Okay, so we own that whole frontage.
Well, I don't, show that up there, will you, Shane?
Oh, I can see the
I
line
think
now that I
it's,
can.
yeah, we're right there. That's the city of Watertown. That's a great lot, and
We
and I
own
think we
this.
would be remiss to sell that.
We own these two.
Okay, so then Craig, you got an idea if he comes back to you and talks to you, you can say
Yeah.
that, that we really don't want to. Thanks, man, I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
All right. Number 3, application for transfer of ownership of a retail on-off sale malt beverage license from Freedom Value Centers Incorporated doing business as Gold Mine at 225 West Kemp to JAMB-5 LLC doing business as Freedom Value Centers at the same location. At this time, I will open the public hearing if there's anyone who wants to speak in favor of or against this. Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. I'm going to look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Mike, second by Don. Any questions on this? This is a name change.
I'm looking at the address of the applicant. I don't understand where they from. It says 1843 Atwood Avenue, RJ. Not a name of a town or?
RI, Rhode Island.
Atwood, do they have just an Atwood Avenue in
It
Rhode
is
Island
Rhode
or?
Island.
I'm assuming
Yeah.
it's a zero zip code, so I would assume that's in the northeast.
This
of
is where the
States.
corporation of JAMB-5 LLC is located. For their address, it's owned by the officer that signs K.M. Patel. This is a change of ownership of the liquor license. I believe they've sold their, if I'm not mistaken, the casino side of it, and they're selling their license for the casino.
Dude, where is it though? It's not even.
I believe it must be for somebody from India.
Any other questions? Because this is, like I said, they sold their license for the casino.
Look at that, it's.
You guys want to share what you're talking about, so we all hear this, so that we know? I'm just saying, any questions for finance or legal or myself? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Mayor, I struggle every time we get one of these things in front of us to know what the purpose of it is.
We had that discussion this morning during our meeting, that we will, in your packets from now on, it'll have an explanation of what's
As to
going on.
what is being requested and why.
Right,
Okay.
and
'Cause
when you see it, I mean, they're asking for a transfer of ownership. So basically, the owners of the license are changing. So that's what this license is somebody else is purchasing the right to have that license. And then we go through the whole background check, and then the new owners of that license would be listed on the back, and everybody we did a background check on would be on the back of that license application.
Right,
So-
and from now on, there will be an explanation of what's going
Yeah,
on
just
within the packet.
one line
shouldn't take
sentence
much.
saying what is the purpose of this? It's a change of ownership, staying in the same location is what this one is, correct?
That's correct.
Right, but for me to go through this whole form and try to figure that out, a lot of times, and this is may or may not be a good example, but a lot of times I can't tell why they're doing what they're doing. So that would help immensely, for me anyway.
Right. Okay, we'll move on to number 4, kind of the same thing. Application for a transfer ownership of a retail on-off sale malt beverage license from Freedom Value Centers Incorporated, an inactive license at 615 9th Avenue Southeast to JMB-6 LLC, which will remain inactive at the same location. At this time, I will open the public hearing if there's anyone who wants to speak in favor of or against this. Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Randy, second by Beth. Any questions on this one?
explain to me again about inactive licenses? How long do they have and all this kind of, like, can these new people who purchase this, how long can they leave it inactive or forever or
No,
no?
no, it's a 2-year license. It's inactive within that area. If they do not use it within 2 years, it reverts back to the city.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Does that
'Cause I
reset?
noticed it was both
It will
both
reset at
owners.
this time with the new ownership.
Okay.
Right,
Yep.
because I noticed both the old owner and the new owner both had it as inactive. Okay.
Or at that time they can, which I've seen happen over the years, have, somebody has an inactive license, they can transfer it to another location inactive. It's up to us to allow that to happen, so.
Yes, exactly. Any other questions on it? Hearing none, I'll
Steve?
look for I'm sorry, what?
When it's inactive, they still pay their yearly fees? Yep, that's what
Absolutely.
I thought, so, yep.
Yep. Okay. At this time, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 5, proposed lease agreement with Nick and Matt Kranz Incorporated for city-owned land located at the wastewater facility. Mike, if you want to come up here. In the meantime, this is a public hearing. I will open that at this time if there's anyone who wants to speak in favor of or against this. Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. I'm going to look for, I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion on this. Motion by Dan, second by Glenn. And then you go ahead, Mike, and explain
Okay.
a little bit about it.
The agreement leases 4 small sites at the wastewater facility to the Nick and Matt Kranz farm. The term is 3 years. The lease has the option to be renewed for 3 additional terms if we choose to do so. The rent was increased to $55 an acre in 2015, and the rent is for the 3 small tillable sites, site 2, 3, and 4, that they're in a range from about 15 to 25 acres each, and the total rent due is $3,038.20. Under this agreement, the leasee is responsible for weed abatement, and they cannot apply fertilizer to any of the sites without prior written authorization, because that inhibits our ability to put our sludge on that land. Also, under the agreement, the leasee acknowledges that the city retains the right to convey any or all of the sites to other purposes, such as the shooting range that we're looking at right now. And in the event that some of the property is conveyed to another purpose, then we would do a rent adjustment, so.
Mike, you may have answered my questions already. Is this a renewal of a existing lease?
It kind of is. This same individual used to farm the ground where the softball and the ice are going, and so there's several sites, so it is partially renewal, yes.
And also, why is there no rent on the first site?
Because that is the big one, number 1 there. It's actually, a lot of it, it's hard compacted berms, or cells that hold wastewater. It's a gravel road on top, and then there are windrows of compacted soil with rock, riprap, and pipe to distribute the water out in those ponds. So there's that, and also we may have to, as we have recently for our ultraviolet system upgrade, we have to fill those at times. If they got cut hay down there and I got to use it for the wastewater plant to fill it with water, then that's what we would do. In the past, we used to just spray the weeds ourselves and then mow it. This way, we don't have to go to the cost of mowing and handling the weeds, and it works out good for us.
Mike, in the lease agreement, it says that the agreement is extendable for 3-year periods for 3 times.
Yes.
For each 3-year period, is the price renegotiated, or is?
We could. We just increased it last year. These pieces are so small. For example, like 2 is 15.5 acres, 3 is 11.4 acres. They're not real desirable, so we're just kind of keeping a crop on those. They're right out our back gate, so we can put sludge on it. You have to have a sludge on there to take the nutrients to take our sludge. So the little bit of rent we get is kind of nice, but the main idea is to have that property available for sludge, and also with all the stuff going on out there, we're talking about that shooting range that we might convey to someone else. So it's kind of up in the air what's going on out there.
Is the land to the west, which would be the left of Site 4, is that ours also?
No, that's
Yes,
the brown
yes.
lease property. To the
No,
west?
To the west of Site 4.
Right there.
Oh, yeah,
That's
I'm
ours.
sorry. I was looking at the west of Site 1. Yes, that's one of the prime sites we're looking at now for that shooting range. It might go there, might go in Site 4, but we're hoping it'll fit in, depending on how we have to orient it, west of Site 4, yes.
Any other questions for Mike? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mike. Number 6, ordinance number 1603, amending section 2.0103 and 2.0103A, regulating the permitted times for sale and consumption of alcohol within and for the city of Watertown. This is a second reading, and I will look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Randy, second by Beth. As you all remember, we had changed the time of of selling in the liquor stores. This just brought everything back to normal so that we can have the restaurants and the liquor stores and everybody open up at the same time. I believe it's 11 a.m.
This basically takes the bars that aren't on the Sunday liquor license, that we're only allowed to open till 1. It just kind of puts them all on an even playing field.
Yes.
A little easier to regulate
Exactly
everybody
right.
that way, and
Yep.
so now they'll all be able to open at 11
It was too hard
o'clock.
that we had some that couldn't be open till 1 and some could be at 11.
Yep.
And it just didn't work out.
Just cleans up everything for everybody,
Get done.
and
Any other questions on that? I believe I have a motion and a second. At this time, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 7, ordinance number 1604, amending the zoning district boundaries by rezoning Little's First Edition from I-1 Light Industrial District to C3 Highway Commercial District. At this time, I'll open the public hearing if there's anyone who wants to speak in favor of or against this. Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. I will look for a motion and a second for discussion purposes on this. Motion by John, Bruce, second by Glenn. This one here, folks, this just went through the Planning Commission today. It was approved unanimously through the Planning Commission that took it, all the little addition there, which went up to the purple, not the one on the east though, just so you know, across 31st Street. That is not included in this. But everything off to the west side will now be in C3, and it just makes sense, yeah. The purple will be, I don't know, blue or brown or red or whatever color that is, I don't know.
The I-1 up here will be the same color and conditions as C3 down in the lower portion.
What color is that?
I call it purple and red.
Okay. Okay, all right. Any questions on that for Shane, you guys? This was a good move by the landowners. It changed it all at this particular time. So at this time, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, Shane. Number 8, authorization for the police department to accept a reimbursement of grant funds from the Department of Public Safety to hold 2 training events in 2016. Are you gonna need a motion a second on this? You're gonna need a motion by the council?
I'd like to get approval to
Okay,
move
so what
forward,
I'll do, guys, I'll look for a motion a second for discussion. Motion by
Second.
Don, second by
Second.
Dan. Okay, if you,
I'll be as
Light
brief
her
as
up.
I need here, I guess. We're looking at trying to host 2 classes this summer. The State Department of, our Office of Highway Safety gets federal money that they receive and then pass through to local jurisdictions that are willing to host training classes. These are in the line of Homeland Security preparedness. So there's 2, like, what we call SWAT-type classes that we were selected to host. Each of the classes cost $13,078 to host. They bring instructors in from all over the country, and then our police officers from throughout the state would come here for the week and train. The money, the $13,078, is all completely reimbursed by the Office of Highway, or the Office of Homeland Security, but it does require us to pay for the class up front to the vendor that's providing the training. So it'll show us in the red temporarily until we get reimbursed by the state. They provided us a letter that shows that they will reimburse us in the end. So we're just looking for approval to move forward with that and to kind of go into the red and then be reimbursed later.
well, I think it's important that you do this. I know that you had the SWAT team out just a couple weeks ago, and they did an incredible job. And I think that training is important for you guys. So
And-
I would recommend that you approve this, so.
Just one more thing.
Oh, go
Having a
ahead.
training locally in Watertown is advantageous to us because we don't have to pay for hotel room and fuel and food when we send 5 or 6 of the officers to somewhere else to do that. So it's kind of a hassle to have to pay for it up front, but it saves us a ton in the long run because they can sleep in their own beds and we don't have to pay for their meals.
how many people from outlying area are coming in for this training, or
There'll be
approximately?
20 officers total. We're hoping to have about 6 or 7 of those will be Watertown Police Department officers.
So there's going to be
coming from around the state.
dozen or so come from other places that are going to have to spend
Yeah.
money on a motel room and eats and all that, so.
Any other questions for Ryan? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Ryan, you know, when I heard the, come across on the SWAT team going up there, I thought it was going to John's house.
I got to say, I watched the whole thing for about 4 hours. They're pretty impressive. Your group did an excellent job. They were about 100 feet from my porch over there working, and I kind of had an eyeball poking over the windowsill watching. So, but
They do a lot of training.
Your
to-
team did an excellent job.
Thank you.
Do you guys remember that thing up where the guy kind of hung out and his eyes were over the Kilroy? Yeah, I could see John. Kilroy was here. Okay. Okay, moving on. Thanks, Ryan. Number 9, consideration amendment to the agreement with IMS Inc. for the pavement management study. This is what we all just kind of looked at earlier in the work session. What I'll do is I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion, and we'll have Shane take it over. Motion by Beth, second by Brad. Shane, is there any question that you guys want to ask Shane, or if you want to tell the folks in the public that this did all go through the work session to take a look at that, but you're welcome to touch base on it again.
Okay, well, I'll just focus on the table that we put together, kind of stating where things are at. So the project, originally, you know, the state share was $62,880. City's portion was $15,720. When we went into that scenario, we were thinking that we would need to purchase our own coring machine and hire somebody to take cores, and just a rough guess, low estimate probably is that would have cost us $30,000 out of our own budget dollars, and would not be eligible for the grant, which we did. And the new money that we're proposing to add to the project is this $29,822. It would be grant eligible up to the cap, and then the city's portion would be 20% of what up to the cap, and then of course anything that falls over the cap would be more. So just for comparisons, we were looking at about a $45,000 to $6,000 city share with the approval of this, and if we can get it through the more dollars through the grant, we're looking at $28,400. So simple math. I think it's a worthwhile thing. So,
Any questions, you guys? Okay, at this time, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, Shane. Also, number 10, consideration of bids received for the 2016 street improvement project. This time, I will look for a motion and a second for discussion. We'll let Shane then explain what's going on. Motion by Glenn, second by Don, and then you go ahead, Shane.
okay, we did get very good bids. It is a new company, and we've done some homework on them. I'm not sure if it's pronounced Cole or Keel, but Excavating. They're a company out of Hancock, Minnesota. We did do some research. We did not find any negative feedback on that, so we're proposing to go ahead and award to that company. They did have the low bid of $313,166, which is 11% lower than our estimated engineer's cost of $351,694. We did have 3 other bids, which range in the $346,000 range to just under $390,000. The good news that you don't see on your in your packet is we did a comparison, and when we did our preliminary assessment hearing with the folks that own property along there, we were giving them, for instance, one segment had an estimated cost of $91 to $96 per foot. With these new bids, that more realistic number is about $71 a foot. On the other segment, we were talking about $110 to $115 per linear foot. Those actuals are closer to $94 a foot. So I think we did a good job putting our project together. We've gotten good bids. I would hope to think that everybody that owns property along there would see the value that we've included in this project and would willingly proceed with this project at this point. And that's what our recommendation is that we award to this contractor and proceed with the project.
Any questions for Shane on this?
I just have one. Have we talked to anybody that has worked with these folks before?
Yes, we interviewed 3 different communities.
And good response, I take it?
Yes, yep. It's a relatively new company, so their history isn't well vetted, but the ones that we did have as references had no issues.
Who does the testing of the compaction? Who does that?
We'll do that with our own staff.
Okay. Any other questions for Shane? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 11, consideration of bids received for the 2016 sidewalk accessibility project. This time I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Dan. Second by Beth. All right, Shane, if you want to take on that.
Okay, again, we took bids. This year's project was a little bit scaled back from last year. If you recall, last year's project, we did a very substantially sized project, and our bids came in extremely high. So no award was made, and so no construction happened on our sidewalk program last year. This year, we decided that we would take a little bit more conservative approach and dissect that project into where we'll have 2 or 3 projects over the course of the next couple of years to complete. We did get a good bid from Tyzac Concrete out of La Center, Minnesota. They have done work for us in the past. They are actually one of the premier sidewalk companies in the state of Minnesota. They go all over. They bang out their work really fast. I mean, they're fast, efficient, and really good to work with. So we have no bones with awarding this contract to Tyzac. And in fact, their bids came in substantially lower than our engineer's estimate. We had a engineer's estimate of $264,000. We're roughly $80,000 below that. So what we may actually do is look at some of the fringe areas in our program and add those, but I wouldn't do that without seeking permission from you folks to do so. But I mean, we do have budget. We could potentially add a few sidewalk segments in if desired, and we'll bring that forward to you if we see something that we really want to accomplish this summer. We are incorporating work for the park system in this. We have actually 4 different segments of sidewalk improvements in this park system that we're going to take care of through this project for Jay. And I think those are much needed improvements to those park segments in there. Again, well within his budget to complete. So we have no questions about making a recommendation to award this contract at this time.
Good. Any questions for Shane?
Shane, I guess you've probably already answered the question, but just the fact that it's so much less than the engineer's estimate and so much less than the other bid that we got, no concerns?
Again, this company is based on efficiency. They'll come in with 20 to 30 people, and they'll start working on multiple locations all at one time. And they're just so efficient, it's amazing to watch.
Good deal.
I might
Any
just
other-
have a question, Shane. Why would we not want to tell you to go ahead and spend your budget when
No,
we have all these areas?
We'll kind of hold that budget back a little bit. Yeah, we're gonna wait. We're gonna wait just a little bit on that. Yeah. Good idea. Yeah.
Mother said no.
Yeah, we're not going there. All right. We're gonna hold off just a little bit. There might be some other projects that Shane wants to do. Okay. So anyhow, any other questions on that? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Shane, I do have a quick question on that I just kind of thought of. We had a company a couple years ago that took forever, and it lasted and lasted and lasted, never got done. Do you have an end date on that? And if you do, is there any kind of a cost associated?
We do have an end date as with all of our contracts, and I I don't have that number right in my head, but usually what we try to do is wrap those up before school starts if possible. And this company will, because they're from out of town, they'll come in, they'll get it all done and lined up and get done. And we won't know what their proposed start time is until, now that we've made an award, we'll have a pre-construction conference and we'll define all those particular schedules at that time.
Perfect. And then I just wanted to mention too, under old business here, I'm going to slide over to the next one. I'm going to the county meeting tomorrow morning, and we'll be discussing the Cook Complex. They agreed to $125,000 to put on the north side of the complex. I think our estimate is up $9,000 from that. We'll ask them if they're okay with doing that. I still expect it's going to come in under that, but we'll just make sure that they're on board with that. Any other old business you guys need to talk about?
Well, go ahead, Don.
Question, 15-second update on the drainage, north part of town, northeast part.
That, as I understand it, the consultant has or is going to give me plans to review. Supposedly they're nearing completion, so I hope to see something in my office in the next week or two to review.
I just got a couple comments. I have gotten some calls and almost got hit myself in the roundabout up by the schools. I'm confident that the reason being is we all educated to be yielding to the right when we should be yielding to the left up there. Is the signage up there adequate for that, or is there something else that we could do to maybe? I got called today that a gentleman had 2 incidents very recently at the roundabout in the same scenario, and I have myself, because I travel that a lot. I've had others mention that to me. And I looked at the signage the other day, and once you do it and get used to looking left, you're fine. But is there something that we could do up in that area to maybe bring more attention to that yield left?
I will say that the signage that's there is pretty much a national standard. I mean, it doesn't change a lot if you go from state to state and community to community. I think what I actually observe more of the opposite. It's those people that hesitate and don't continue into the roundabout that can create more potential conflicts than those that rush in. I mean, obviously, if you see something that's very closely coming around, in other words, you can't wait till that car gets too close to you and then try to pull out in front of you. You roll into that thing, and the car that's coming around does have to yield to that other car as well. I mean, it's a merging event. One has to give to the other depending on where you're located within the circle. So it is an education piece. Each person has to educate themselves on how to safely operate it, but it's not a unique roundabout.
And that's it. I had suggested today that that it is a tough thing. There's only so much we can do education-wise. But I said I would bring it up.
Yeah.
And then the second item on there is, and this is probably for the mayor and the police department, but I did get a call and a complaint about speeds on 19th Street and on Grandview. This is not a you issue. This is a mayor issue. I live on 19th, and I will tell you that since the snows kind of went away, it's been bad. And I don't know if we need to have, and there really are some times a day that are very prevalent, that 7:30 to 8:30 in the morning, and then that off of work, and 4:30, 5 o'clock time frame at the end of the day. But it really has. That's a little speedway up there at certain times.
Actually, Ryan, maybe you want to pass it along to the chief for me. We'll just put up one of those speed signs for a while and see if it can't slow people down. I feel bad because I was going to tell you were having issues on the roundabout. I was going to say step on a little bit.
Can I make a suggestion? This is what I tell people that call me about the roundabout and using it, is I suggest to them that they take hours of the day that are less traveled, whether that's in the evening or middle of the afternoon, depending on their schedule, and come at it from every direction and just get used to the idea of merging from this way and from this way and from that way. And you'll find that pretty soon it does become second nature. It goes along with education and practice, but if you can do it at a time when you're not stressed out by all these other cars coming, it helps a lot.
Well, the people that have called me or talked to me about it, they know how to use it. It's the people that are in it or that are coming into it while they're into it that don't know how to use it.
Well,
So-
tell them to practice too.
I did have somebody mention to me that after the snow the other day, it was extremely slippery
Yeah,
going
the whole
around
town
that.
was slippery.
Yeah,
It was
but
pretty
that's
bad.
that's what I explained to them too. But they said that was worse than they've ever seen. But
It was pretty bad. Another thing I just wanted to mention that I was up at the community center today and went through, and it is moving extremely fast. Mike, I know you were up on a tour. If you want to give a little heads up, it was exciting to see what they're doing. There's I think a lot of concrete being poured every day. They've got, gosh, I seen one of the rec centers basketball court was poured, and
Yeah, when we first started this thing, there was a lot of infrastructure underground, and people got nervous because nothing was going up, and it takes that time. Well, now that the primary building is up, you really don't see anything going on. It's all interior for the most part. And so we did take a tour last week. Took the rec center board up there last week. Went through it. Like the mayor suggested, most of the floors are poured. The primary areas that weren't poured last week were the gyms, and there was actually a storage room or two and hallway that weren't done. So those will get worked on really probably by sometime next week. I'm guessing that probably all the concrete interior will be poured. They're starting a lot of the interior stubbing out of the walls that are going on in there, and so you kind of get lost in steel beams. So it's coming along really well. They look to start digging the pool sometime in April. So probably by mid-April is kind of the target that they're looking.
actually going in tomorrow to see if the frost is gone. They don't think it is inside there, but I'm going to check it out.
It's exciting. It's really coming.
They're actually going to start hanging sheetrock probably in the next couple of days up in there. So it is fun. So if you guys get a chance to go up and go through there, I would welcome that. I think.
Yeah, if you guys want, I can coordinate a meeting or a tour for you guys like we did the rec center. That'd be a good thing.
John Small and I went through it too the other day. John does a good job. He knows what everything, because it's hard to remember what each one of those rooms is all about.
But
So
I think Mike's idea is a pretty good idea, though. Instead of me going and this guy going and this guy going, it'd be nice to have a tour of the majority of the council that could do it all at one
Today, when I
time.
was
So
in the big gymnasiums, just to kind of give you an idea, you know it's big, but when they have it's a smaller size, but there's a road grader in there working, and there's 2 or 3 Bobcats working, and then they're pouring concrete over here. Those folks are moving, and that's all by Gray Construction is doing that concrete work in there. So it's fun to see them move. Yeah, it's crazy. Any other questions you guys have? Any old business or new business?
I do have one question. I went for a little ride yesterday and went around the lake. It was very disturbing. I know of at least 6 places on the bike trail where people had to walk out in the street to walk around trailers that are sitting across the bike trail. We
We've
haven't,
seen
when,
that.
when we addressed the parking issue in town, we also said that we would address the lake because it had to be addressed differently, which I don't think we've even looked at yet, so.
No, we haven't, and I think that's on the radar that we're gonna be looking at the lake, and they shouldn't be over the bike trail.
Yep.
That's important, and Shane, can you pass that to Jim tomorrow? We're anywhere in particular, just?
The worst ones I seen were right over by the, there was 2 or 3 different ones that were right over by the
Sailboat
country
or
club.
Country club,
Yep.
okay.
And the other ones were, around the lake someplace. I can't remember, but I know there was like 3 of them just in a short period there.
Mayor, can I ask you a favor? Can you give a very, a short update on the gun range rifle? There are all kinds of rumors going around. I get stopped and asked about that. It's good because they're excited about it, but there's a lot of feeling that decisions have been made in regards to what we have, and a lot of them haven't been discussed but we have not made decisions. If you would just give something so that we can maybe get people informed as to what the current status is.
Right, yeah, and Shane just put it up there where we're actually proposing the gun range to go. We're looking at more like two projects is how I would consider it. The first project will be really closely tied in with the game fish and parks, and that'll be your outdoor range. That we're looking at the outdoor range probably more on the south side of that lot, and because we can use some fill work with inside the floodplain. I'm sorry, we can move dirt around there as long as we aren't messing in the floodway. I'm really hoping there's a good chance that with the game fish and parks, how they're looking at it, how the city is looking at it, that first project could get started yet this fall, and have that outdoor range working. That's going to be 100, 200 yard, and 300 yard, plus pistol ranges. I think they go 25 and 50 yards for the outdoor pistol. The second part of it is an indoor range. We have not come to any conclusion yet of what's happening on there. I was at a conference in Alabama here this last week, and it's very interesting to follow that because there's so many things that have to take place. There's ventilation problems. There's how do you get rid of the lead problems. There's just many things. Do we have retail inside of it? Do we have just pistol range? Do we have a short range rifle in there? Do we have bow and arrow in there? There's so many unanswered questions, and that's what this group of about 20 people are doing right now. We're looking at that. We are going to take a ride down to Brookings and Garrison, is it? Garrettson, and take a look at their ranges. They actually did it within themselves. They had their own engineering that did it. We need to talk to them and see how it worked out, what their cost is per square foot to get it done. But this is a project that it's going to take a little bit of time, especially with the indoor gun range. We want to do it right. If we're going to do it, let's do it right. So there's a huge safety factor that goes into play here. Can they watch somebody shoot? Can they not? But you're looking more in the year 2017 in order to get that project done in there.
Well, Mayor, and to remind the public that one of the real needs for that indoor range is so that the current indoor range that's at the Boys and Girls Club can be vacated. It was probably a good decision way back when, but it's just not an appropriate place for that anymore. And as they look to have their plans for that facility, we will need then to have a new location for a range. And that's what's really what the impetus behind driving that.
So it's actually going very, very well, and we just got to make sure that we got all our ducks in a row on that thing. And Mike Berger and I have had conversations with the landowners to the east, Matt Kranz and Steve West, I believe are their names. They're all on board with this thing. They're extremely happy to see the property used in the right way, and we were worried that they all run some cattle out there, and they said, those cows are okay. They can take it. Not the shots, but they can take the noise. So we're good with that. So everything's going smooth. Dan, you've been in on those meetings, and although you were out for the last one, I think, and it's going good. And it's a great group of people. Just so you know, the Game Fish and Parks is on board. The police station's on board. We have LATI, who is working very closely with us, and just many groups are involved in this process. Does that help you, Mike? Perfect.
I looked at the one out in Scottsdale, which is totally different. I mean, it's just huge, but it's interesting. You can kind of see what it's going to look like, and so it's pretty exciting.
The Game Fish does have a video on YouTube. If you go to that and look at the building of the outdoor range in Fort Pierre, and it's fascinating to watch that thing go up. It's a good show. Any liaison member reports? Any need to go into executive session? Otherwise, I'll look for a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. We are adjourned. I think that was Mike and